Do you have a cordless hairdryer?
No, I've got an extension cable.
Just walk around with it.
No, I didn't mean like out on the street.
Oh,
I meant in the backyard.
I meant out on the street. I meant as like a general, like, let's make this a community thing. Like,
I mean, you can get wireless leaf blowers. Why not cordless hair dryers? I mean,
what are those two doing now? Warming iguanas.
hello, and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
How to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, come and join the conversation in our Facebook group.
And enjoy the show.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Oh, that was a bit squeaky.
I know.
Did you hear that?
Did you hear him? Like, hey.
Hey. I've still got my sexy smelly cat voice going on at the moment.
And I'm her backup singer today. The joys of living on an island. It's super hot, and then it's so cold, island cold, and then
it's all relative.
And then it's super hot and then super cold. So we kind of just keep passing back and forth this like.
Well, and I think it's also that it's a time of year where it's starting to get more peoply as well. So when you go out, there are so many people around in ways that, like, so you're in close quarters with lots of people, especially like over the holidays and New Year's. I mean, we said on a previous podcast, we didn't go downtown for New Year's, but you're still around some people. I
have to say it's kind of a fun time of year for me, people watching, because you can tell the locals and you can tell the tourists. Like, walking down the street, you'll see people in like sweaters and sweatshirts and like winter coats, and then the next person walking down is shirtless or Speedo, and it's like
that first year I was here. I think it was the first year. I remember like there was like a coolish day, and it's like, again, like cool is relative. It's a relative term here. Like cool here is like a nice summer day in England. And I remember seeing somebody in like jeans and a puffy jacket, and I was like, what? What is happening? Now I'm that person.
Right? I actually think, like, if I hadn't switched my address to Key West, like, officially, like, Massachusetts would have caught on. They would have heard me talking about how cold it is at 60 degrees, and they would have been like, you know what? You no longer belong in this
We
state.
no longer claim you. You can no longer claim to be a part of us. Yeah.
I hear myself, and I fully admit, I'm like, I hear what I'm saying. It's freezing. People are like, it's 75. I'm like, it's cold. Do you see the breeze? Like,
well, and I think the thing is that I'm somebody who, like, it's a bit of an in-joke that, like, whenever I meet people here and they hear my accent, and I'm like, well, I'm not obviously from here originally, but I was like, I'm not built for English weather. I'm built for Key West weather. Like, that's like, this is my climate. So I've always been someone who tends more to the cold, like feeling the cold more. Yeah, we did a family vacation to Orlando in like February time. So I come directly from England, and I remember it was like, I think it was like 11 o'clock at night, and we couldn't get into our villa because the code wasn't working or something, and the villa was owned by someone in the UK. So I was like out, and it was before like cell plans had roaming and stuff on them. So I remember I was on a payphone outside a restaurant in like this like huge fleece, shivering, calling back the UK at like 3 a.m. in the morning, trying to wake this guy up to go, how do we get into the house? So yeah, we do the kind of, there is like legitimately cold, but it's not really that here very often.
Yeah, my younger self doesn't know what to do with herself, because I was always like, the heat tended to affect me more than the cold. Yeah. And now I'm just, nope.
Well, and it gets cold enough. I don't think we've actually ever mentioned this on the podcast before. One of the features of the Florida winter is raining iguanas, because we have a high iguana population. Actually, they're not indigenous to this area. Basically what happened with people would keep them as like exotic pets, and they would get too big and they would just release them. And now I mean, there's iguanas everywhere here. And you know it's winter when literally we get warnings of falling iguanas because it gets too cold for them, and they literally just like freeze solid almost in the tree, as in they can't move, and they go rigid and they just drop from the trees, and you have to sort of leave them until they've warmed up again in the sun. They're literally like when they will warm up. In fact, we actually had one in the backyard just the other day when we finished recording. And one of the local cats was like very interested, and we're like, I don't want to leave that iguana. He was like basking in because it was a cool day here for iguanas. Maybe iguanas and I have a similar kind of internal thermostat. And he was
a cold-blooded thing, you.
He was like, I just want to hang out in the sun. And the cat's like, ooh, what's that? And I'm like, dude, we can't let you I know you want to hang out in the sun, but there's a lot of cats here. And if we leave you, I don't think you're going to make it home for dinner.
I hadn't even considered that he might have just been cold. Like the iguana let me come up to him. And of course, it took about 20 minutes of me talking to him. I don't know if he heard me, but I wanted to make sure he knew I wasn't a threat.
And she made sure to let him know that she was trying, she didn't want to cross his boundaries. I mean, legitimately, it's like, hey,
that is what I did. I'm just gonna help you, and I put my hand just a little bit closer, and then he kind of just lean away a little bit.
He's
and
but his head would tilt slightly. Yeah. It wasn't like he would and iguanas move fast when they're scared. It's not. So we're like, is he okay?
And then I'm like, I want to make sure your foot's okay. Can you undo your foot for me just a little bit? And
he moved, and I'm like, okay, the foot's okay. We know that he's because we wanted to get him to a sanctuary, like a wildlife place that could take care of him if he wasn't well.
But then I mean, he let me pick him up, which is not something that happens here. You don't get to pick up iguanas. They do not appreciate nor usually
they don't hang around. They don't hang around long enough in order for you to pick them up.
Carried them over to the tree, and they're definitely going to be a podcast episode on the boundaries of animals because over the holidays we had a situation that just blew Joe's mind in the context of Larry, and it's funny, we've all been talking about it since, so I think it is a good episode. But I do even when I'm talking to Larry, I'm like, hey buds, I'm like, we're gonna do this right now, and it seems the thing is it seems to work because they can feel the energy of okay, I don't know what's going on here. They're hearing wah 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 wah, but it's like
Charlie Brown's teacher.
It seems like she cares though.
Whatever it is, it's clearly important because she's been talking at me for a while now.
Their heads.
So and it was funny, I didn't think about the heat thing either until I was telling somebody else about it later that day, and he was like, oh yeah, he's probably cold.
He just needed a hug.
He needed to hang out in the sun, so we took him out of the sun and put him in the shade on a tree, but he moved up the tree, so he's gonna find some sun. But I was like, yeah, there's too many, and there are some cats here who are enjoy chasing the other local wildlife, shall we say. I'm like, I don't want to leave you there, buddy, because I don't think you're going to make it if I do.
I want to start a movement of giving the cold iguanas hugs.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to catch on. I mean, maybe blow them with a hairdryer? I'm not sure that hugs...
Well, how
do we know if we're crossing their boundaries? We won't know.
Do you have a cordless hairdryer?
No, I've got an extension cable.
Just walk around with it.
No, I didn't mean out on the street. I meant in the backyard.
I meant out on the street. I meant as a general, let's make this a community thing.
I mean, you can get wireless leaf blowers. Why not cordless hair dryers? I mean,
what are those two doing now? Warming iguanas. And you know what?
We're going to be checking Amazon later today.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think we've gotten quite a name for ourselves down here within our friend group. Nobody would really, they'd be like, yeah, they're just...
Sounds about right.
Yeah, they're making sure the iguanas are warm. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody here knits iguana sweaters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or a couple of years ago, I saw on the locals pages.
How do you get an iguana into a sweater?
How do you get a cat into a cape?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what iguana treats are. So, I mean, training an iguana, a wild iguana at that, versus, hey, buddy, I have these treats I know that you like, and you're not going to get them unless you get in the cape. I mean, I'm going to be honest. One's a little easier than the other.
True. Very true. I'm going to have to think on that a little bit. Iguana training coming soon.
a new spin-off from the universal needs.
Could you imagine a little iguana doing fist bumps?
Oh my goodness. Like, yeah, Larry the cat does fist bumps. I don't think we've said that before. Have we? Have we mentioned that?
How
I don't know how we've not mentioned it, but if we haven't, certainly we haven't mentioned it for a while. But yeah, Larry does fist bumps
and high fives now.
And
and there's a difference. There's a true difference. He knows what the fist bump is, and he knows what the high five is.
Oh my god, it's the coolest cat. I mean, let's not get sucked into the Larry vortex today. I mean, we have another day planned for that. Actually, we got to figure out how we're going to do that. Now I'm not going to be here anymore.
We'll figure it out.
I mean, we'll find somewhere. It's not going to be an issue. We're going to end up doing one at your place, aren't we? Anywho, none of this is what we're talking about today.
We'll let you know about that one because that's another one. Going to be worth the video to see.
Yes.
The eclectic wonderland that I live in.
Of accoutrement.
It's definitely us.
It's very
random and
a little extra at times.
Fun and lots of Amazon boxes.
Well, that's true. Anyway, this is not what we're talking about today. Today, we are doing episode number 2 in our conflict series. And I had a situation with a client a while back that kind of brought this example to the fore. But it's also something that we can see. We're actually going to kind of give you some examples of how this would work within our business relationship, because I think a lot of times we think about these things and just think about them in terms of intimate relationships or relationships with family members. But these principles that we're teaching and sharing with you literally apply to any conflict in any dynamic. And so basically what happened was I was speaking.
I'm going to jump in just
Sure.
so you know. We're going to talk about specifically today how to take the conflict out of some conversations. We had said the conflict series.
Did I not say that?
I don't believe so, no.
No, I don't think I did either. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's the reason there's 2 of us, so that if one of us totally fades out on something, the other one might go, oh, hold on, you might want to tell them what we're talking about today.
We're going to talk about the ways this happens. For what?
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that whatever you're listening on, this is the title of the episode, so you got a bit of a hint. But still, I mean, it is helpful to have a little reminder this is what we're talking about today. Thank you. So anyway, basically what happened was I had an incident with a client a while back in which this person was saying that when this is somebody who spent a lot of time at home, who didn't have, I don't know if they had a job at the time. They may have had a part-time job at the time, but they were home a lot of the time and they were not doing kind of full-time work.
And their partner was doing
yes
full-time and then some and
yeah, exactly. And so what was happening was, incoming. Welcome to Key West.
The flight path changed.
Yeah.
There's 2 different flight paths onto the island.
Yeah.
One goes right over this house and one doesn't.
Guess which one we're on today.
Wind's coming from the east.
Right. And so what was happening was that when this person's partner was coming home from their day job, not that they had a night job, from their full-time job, what was happening was that they were saying, oh, like, what have you done today? And this person was receiving this as an attack or as a criticism. They were getting triggered by the question. And they were like, well, how do I change the fact that that's how I'm feeling when they're asking this question? And obviously tone matters and like the energy that somebody is in matters. There's a big difference between like, what have you done today? And, or like, what have you done today? Like, or like, what have you done today? Come on. Like, you know what I mean?
Or if there's something not done, like
yes,
walking in and being like,
looking at the dishes going, what have you done today? Yeah. There was a kind of pointed energy, but I think that even in a neutral energy, and this is the thing is that sometimes that, even some, like, because as we've talked about in previous episodes, where we have a wounding over something or an unmet need around something, what can happen is that somebody else can come in and trigger something, and it's not about what's happening in that moment. It's either triggering something that we already feel, or it's triggering something that's happened in the past. And so what we end up is reacting to how we're feeling about ourselves anyway, or to this thing that's happened in the past. It's got nothing to do with this person in front of us. So it was a really valid question. And so obviously taking into consideration that we're assuming in this situation that the question is somewhat neutral in nature, that it's not coming with a very pointed hello.
Right. It's more of a how was your day than
yes. And I think that's the thing, is the difference between, and there is a difference between how was your day and what did you do today. But I think if you're coming at it from like, oh, what did you do today? Like that's a very like, I'm just curious to find out like what your day entailed, as opposed to what did you do today? Like there's so many ways to say that sentence, and it can sound.
What did you do today?
Right, exactly.
I worked all day. What did you do?
Yes. What have you done today? Like depending on like. There's like I remember there's this thing that if you like emphasize different words, I'm like, what have you done today? What have you done today? Right. What have you done today? Like it totally changes the.
What did you do today?
Yeah. There's all these kind of different ways of saying it. But so we're kind of assuming that it's kind of more neutral in nature. But it's still creating this feeling of kind of being criticized in this situation. So obviously. The overriding thing is meet your own needs. That's going to be on, because if it's triggering you, if you're feeling criticized or triggered in some way, it's triggering an unmet need in some way, shape or form. So the first thing we'll say is if you are consistently meeting your own needs, then things are going to trigger you significantly less. It's not to say they're not going to trigger you, but the impact and the extent of the trigger is going to be much less than if your needs are not met. So we'll just start off with that. But there are really kind of three things that I suggested to this client. And I think these are things that are really helpful for people to bear in mind in this situation. Now, the thing about it is, if your needs are well met and you're good in yourself, in the sense that I think a lot of the reason that that this question was being taken as a criticism was due to the circumstances, due to the situation, due to the fact that this person wasn't working. And so it was being interpreted as like, well, what did you contribute today? Like, I've been out to work, but what the hell did you do, kind of thing. And now the thing about it is, if your needs are met and you're feeling good about yourself, about what you've done today and what you're contributing in general, I mean, if you are generally someone who is contributing a hell of a lot to the relationship, to the situation, to the household, whatever it is that's going on, then if someone comes in and you've had a day where you haven't really done that much, but most days you do a shit ton of stuff, then on having one day where you haven't done a lot, really not going to trigger much in you.
What did you do? I mean, I kind of feel that now. It's like there are days, like there's a lot to do. We have a business where we're literally trying to change the world. Like the work never ends, ends. I could work 24/7 and still have more work to do.
Oh yeah.
But that's not how we operate, because that doesn't meet our needs.
No.
And so there are some days where it's like, I got out of bed. Yeah. That's what I did.
Well, I'm actually going to go further than that. Like some days, Serena will be like, actually, I've just rested today. And I'm like, great. You took care of yourself so that you were in a space to be able to contribute more tomorrow or the day after or whenever it is that you next do something. Like if you are somebody who is like, actually taking rest and nourishing yourself, as we know, is important. Like that is a valid and part of being, we've talked about it in a previous podcast, I'm sure, about being quote unquote productive. That's a productive thing to do, is to take care of yourself and your needs, because you're building the resource with which you're going to do other stuff. But I think the thing is, if you are not feeling like you are contributing, if you are feeling less than in some way, that's where that interpretation can come from.
Well, and I want to just kind of point out, and it's not just contributing to, in this situation, it's like the household, the family, the greater nest, whatever. I don't know.
The greater nest.
I don't
heard it here, folks.
I'm thinking like you nesting. I don't know.
I got it. I knew what you meant. I mean, it was an interesting way of describing it, but it worked.
The first word that came to my mind. And the thing is, like, I can only speak from my own experience with this. Like, there's always something to do around the house. There's always something to clean. There's something to cook. There's a list to be made or to be done.
Right.
All of the things. But if I know that I've done something for myself, whether it's resting, stretching, just like whatever it is, getting my to-do list done, if I'm meeting my own needs, I'm going to feel a lot like I'm going to feel like I'm doing something.
Right.
I'm contributing, maybe not to the whole household or the nest, but I'm contributing to myself, and that's going to help me contribute later.
Right.
So I'm not going to get triggered by it, because it's like, oh no, I'm giving to myself today, and that's okay, because that allows me to then give to the whole.
Well, I'm going to add to that, and there's context to that, because if you are somebody who spends all day every day giving to yourself and not contributing to the household, then that's a different situation. If you're somebody who, as we talked about in the mental labor episode, about like takes 100% responsibility for the household, and it's like, this is my place, and I'm going to make sure that it is functioning and clean and tidy and all those sorts of things. And then there is a day where I don't do that because I'm taking care of myself, because I need to do that so that I have the capacity to next clean or tidy or whatever it is. Then there's a lot of context here. There's a lot of nuance. But the thing about it is that a lot of the time that feeling like a question like that, feeling like an attack, is because what's happening is that we are hearing it through the filter that we already have on ourselves. We already view ourselves as not contributing. We already view ourselves as that we are not doing enough, maybe. And so the first thing is, one, to be making sure that we're meeting our own needs, because that could just be a perception thing. It could be, we're viewing ourselves as not enough because we're in a society where we're bombarded by messages that we're not enough. And we could be doing a lot. We're just internalizing these messages in such a way that we're still viewing ourselves as not doing enough. So meeting our own needs, especially our value need, is super important in this situation. It may be that deep down, you're not contributing. And you're not contributing in a way that is equitable and fair to this situation. And again, like, it's okay if that's the case, as long as you're then going to do something about it and make sure that communicate about it, have a conversation about it. So the thing about it is, first things first is looking at yourself and making sure that it's that you're good within yourself and that your needs are met. Because if you're not, if someone comes in, and we talked about this in the previous episode, if someone comes in to me and says, "Oh, Claire, you don't know jack about needs," I'm going to be like, okay, depending on who you are. Most of the time, I'm going to be like, okay. Bye. Like, I'm not going to really engage, because I don't need to prove to anybody what I know and what my value is. I already know it. And if Serena came to me and said that, I'd be like, okay, tell me more. Like, say more about that.
Do tell about needs.
Genuinely, if she was somebody whose opinion I valued, and I thought that they might have a perspective on this that I wasn't aware of, I'd be like, okay, tell me more about this. Like, I'm like, what am I not seeing? I would be curious about it. And then if Serena said something that I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, if I again know my value, I'm like, it doesn't really resonate. Agree to disagree. Not that I think that would probably happen at any point. I mean, that would be a very funny conversation for Serena to come to me and go, Claire, you don't know anything about needs. Like, okay. We've been doing a podcast about this for over a year now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Could be fun. So like, the key thing is like to make sure that you're dealing with any of those internal triggers that you have. And that you are making sure that you are good within yourself. That's the very first thing, is that you're not taking something personally because it's landing on a trigger that's already there. And if there is a trigger that's already there, that is an indicator for you to do some healing around that thing. Like, you don't go, oh, there's a trigger there. Anyway, moving on.
But that a lot of people do that. A lot of people are like, ooh, all right, let's keep going. And then the same trigger gets hit. Like, I mean, with this client, it was like, every single day, they let themselves get impacted without saying, doing, going in deeper. It was just like, okay, it happened again. Keep going. Okay, I feel this again.
Well, and it's like, they kind of go, oh, I'm going to take a slight step. Like, if I step to the side, I won't trigger that thing again. But they walk into the same trigger like 3 steps on. And then it's like, oh, side step again. Let's see if we can go around it. And it's like, you can't get around it. Like, if you have a trigger, it's because there's been some kind of trauma, some kind of wounding that needs to be addressed. And there is a needs approach. And actually, that's one of the things I think we need to do a podcast episode on, is like, if you have a trigger or a trauma from the past, how do you use your needs as a method for starting to heal those things? And depending on whether it happened in adulthood or childhood is different. But random fly appeared under my face. But I think that would be a good episode to do. So that's your indicator that you have some work to do, and that you want to do some healing around that thing for your own benefit, because you don't want that to be like, if it's like, the way I describe triggers, it's like they're like landmines in a field. And it's like, there's never just one of them. Like if you have it there's going to be them everywhere. And the thing about it is, it's like, it's bad enough where you're going, oh, okay, if I step to this side, maybe I'll avoid that one. But you then step on another one. The issue is you got all the other people in your life traipsing through your field on a regular basis. So even if you don't step on them, chances are someone else is going to at some point. And the easiest way to do it is to dismantle them in order that they aren't there to be triggered anymore.
And a lot of times with that, the kind of landmine analogy is that they're connected in some way. So somebody steps on one, and then all of a sudden,
chain reaction, boom, boom, boom. Yes, boom. Yeah, very true, very true. So that's the first thing, is that you want to be taking care of your needs and making sure that you're not taking something personally because of your internal stuff. The second thing to look at is if your needs are met and you're not taking it personally, you can look at this situation and go, did I fuck up? Like, actually, is there something wrong with what I have done? Is this somebody, for example, like let's using this example, and we'll come to the example of Serena and I at the end. We'll tell you what the three things are, and then we'll come to like how this could apply in our business situation. But if this is somebody who does 90% of the housework and goes out to work full time and takes care of the kids and is doing all of the social and is doing all the mental labor in the house and does all the grocery shopping and the cooking and blah, 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 blah. And I haven't done anything today, not for any reason, not because I'm sick, not because I'm taking a mental health day, but every other day I do contribute. Like I haven't been contributing on the regular. Mm-hmm. And I've again not contributed today with no real good reason for it. If at that point, if there is something that you can look at yourself and go, well, was there something that I should have done but didn't? And I can own that and apologize and make amends and go back to, I think it's episode 16, which is part of our apology series, which is like the steps of an apology to go through. And then make the amends and make the changes so that the situation doesn't happen again in the future. So the first thing is to deal with your internal triggers. The second thing is, once you're not personally triggered by what's going on, actually you can look at the situation and go, oh shit, yeah, my bad. I said I was going to do this today and I didn't. Or
I can see there's a sink full of dishes, and there was a sink when you left, and there's a sink when you got back, and I can see why that would be.
And there's a pile of laundry to do, and I've been sat on the couch watching TV all day, mm-hmm. Or I've been sat doing something that is for me but not for you or the benefit of our. And again, nothing wrong with doing stuff for yourself. If we are we're going to do at some point, we're going to do a relationship series, and just to kind of give a kind of immediate overview of one of the principles that we take when we come to the relationship stuff, is that when it comes to relationships, whether it is intimate relationships, family relationships, friendships, work relationships, there are three entities always. There's like the two individuals who are in relationship, and the relationship is a third entity. Now, we don't talk about each person being responsible for the other person's needs. That's a very toxic view of relationship, where it's like, oh, you have to meet my needs and I have to meet your needs, and that causes a lot of problems in relationship. Mm-hmm. But actually, both people are responsible for meeting the needs of the relationship, and the needs of one of the needs of the relationship is reciprocity, like that we're both putting effort in and we're both receiving from the relationship as well, like with that kind of two-way flow. So if I haven't taken responsibility for this thing that is part of our relationship, which is keeping the house livable, and it's something you do all the time, and I said I would do something and I didn't, or I've just taken care of myself today and I've done that every day for the last 3 years, and you've been doing all this other stuff which isn't about you, it's about the relationship stuff, it's about the house stuff and what have you, that's the point at which you can go, not from a personal place of like, and it's really important when you realize that you've screwed up, you're probably going to have some feelings about it. Let's be honest. And when you have some feelings, it's okay to feel something about it. Like, go back to the guilt and shame series. That guilt mechanism is our humanity going, oh shit, I've done something that has harmed somebody else and I feel bad about it. That's how it's meant to work, because that internal feeling is your motivation to not do it again, to change, to make sure that doesn't happen a second time. Now, in this situation, it can be very easy to get so focused on feeling bad about yourself and bad about what you've done that you go into this internal shame spiral. And what it ends up doing is it ends up meaning the other person who has been impacted by your actions, then has to help you because you're feeling bad about the fact that you've impacted them. So it actually impacts them further. So it's really important in this situation to go, okay, I'm feeling a kind of way about it. I need to go and process that by myself. But in this interaction with this person, I need to focus on them. And I need to focus on, how did I impact them? What can I do to avoid further harm? What can I do to address the situation? What can I do to make amends? What can I do to ensure that I'm making change so that to avoid it happening again in the future? But this is about them, because you're making amends for the impact that you've had on them. If you make it all about yourself, and I've seen this in so many couples dynamics when I worked as a relationship specialist, where one person screws up and they're like, oh my God, I'm so terrible. I'm such a bad person. Why would anyone like me? And they go in and in and in and in. But it's serving to center themselves in what's going on.
It's almost like weaponizing the situation, isn't it?
Well, it's yes, but no. I mean, the one thing I will say about it is that it's subconsciously making themselves the victim. Well, they're kind of the victim of their own behavior. But what they're doing is they're centering themselves in the situation. So this situation, which is supposed to be about the other person, I think the one thing I would say about, I mean, you are right. The challenge with using that word sometimes is that people think that's an intentional thing, and often it's not. It's a subconscious thing. It's not something that we do intentionally. But I don't want people to go, well, I don't do that, because they think it's an intentional thing.
The trigger of the word weaponization. Yes. It's like, well, that's bad, and it's like, well,
and then they them to go, oh, is that what I'm doing? Oh no, that's me. I'm terrible. Blah blah blah. And you end up in the same situation again, where it's like, actually, it's okay to feel bad about it. But there's a difference between, I did something bad, here's how I can do something to address it. Episode 16 will give you the step-by-step on how to do that. And I am bad. There is something wrong with me. And that's often what's happening, is you're getting into that shame spiral. So go back and listen to the guilt shame series when you're kind of thinking about this, because excuse me, it's very important to recognize the difference between the two. And in that situation to go, I fucked up. Okay, I'm going to go and I feel bad about that, but I need to process that for myself. Either I'm going to go and journal about it, or I'm going to go like feel into how I'm feeling, or I'm going to go talk about how I feel. Like if I screw up with somebody else, I'll go to Serena and talk to her about what's happened. I'll be like, God, I feel terrible. Like this happened, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to do that with the person who I've impacted, because that then puts more on that person to deal with me processing how I feel about the fact that I've impacted them.
And if they're not in a great place, then they're going to take it on. And it's like, oh gosh, I made them feel bad for calling them out on what they did to impact me. And then
and again, that's one of those, I made them feel that. No, that is the consequence of their actions. Like there are things that you can do if you negatively impact somebody else. Yes, you have caused the feelings they've had of having their needs negatively impacted. If you've held someone accountable for what they've done, that is not you have made them feel that. That is they are feeling the consequences of their choices and their actions. Massive distinction and very important.
Big difference. I actually think you should say that one more time, because I feel like that's something, until I learned the needs and all of that, it never really...
Yeah.
It never really sunk in. It's something from a surface level. I think everybody hears it and they're like, oh yeah, but it's like, take a moment to really listen to what she's saying, because there is a huge difference between the two. What she
said exactly. I'm like, oh shit, no pressure. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you have negatively impacted somebody else's needs, then yes, you are responsible for the fact that there has been a negative impact to their needs, and they're probably going to be feeling a kind of way about that. Like, so for example, there's a lot of the people out there, it's like, oh, you can't make somebody feel something. Well, if I punch Serena in the face, I'm pretty sure she's going to feel something. I can't guarantee what she's going to feel, but I'm pretty sure she's going to feel something. I mean, let's be honest. That would be on me. I would be the cause of that behavior, that feeling, whatever that feeling is. So there's a difference between I have negatively impacted somebody and go back to the cell. Ooh, hit the pop screen again. Go back to, I get very excited about this, like the hands start flailing as I'm talking. Go back to the Self First series with the episode on the difference between negatively impacting somebody and just not meeting needs that were never your responsibility in the first place. There's more depth in that will help to kind of help this to become a little bit clearer. So there's a difference between that and holding somebody accountable for when they have negatively impacted either you or somebody else. Then how they are feeling is a consequence of their actions and choices. It is not your responsibility how they are feeling. And to avoid that would be to prioritize their feelings over the feelings of the person that's been impacted. Not okay.
And not self first.
And not self first. Nothing about that is self first. So it's really important to, I'm trying to rewind back to where I was. To like, where was I in this? So the thing is that you want to recognize that if you fucked up, which we do at times, everybody does it. I do it. Serena does it. Like, we both have situations where we do this on a regular basis. We are human, as are you. I hate to break it to you. Spoiler alert.
It's how you deal with those fuck ups that makes the big
Absolutely.
difference.
And that's the thing, is that a lot of the time people think that not screwing up is the thing that makes you a good person. It's how you deal.
It's not possible.
You're human. It's how you deal with the screw ups that shows the quality of character that you have. And so the most important thing is to figure out, what are you going to do when you screw up? Because it's not if, it's when. And we need to do a podcast on that as well, because I think that's really important.
Have we not?
I don't think we have. Like, not an explicit one on like, it's not if, it's when you screw up, it's how you do it that builds your character. So like the first most important thing is like, what am I going to do when I screw up? Because it's when. And if you know what you're going to do when you screw up, that's the thing, is that if you don't know what to do, that's when you get caught in this kind of freeze, and you like deer in headlights, and your emotions are up. So you're trying to make like a decision about what to do from a highly charged, triggered state, because your needs around value are probably going to come up, and security and like love connection. It's like, oh God, this relationship might go, and like, what am I going to do? And at that place, you're not going to make good choices.
And a good thing to remember, like we've mentioned the apology blueprint in many episodes, and in this one, we'll I think we can link it in the show notes, can't we? The actual blueprint.
No, I'm not going to link it in the show notes. I would say to people to go back to episode 16. It is in those show notes. I don't want to end up putting, just because if at any point we decide we want to change it or update it, I don't want it in there multiple times.
So back to we'll link you back there.
Yeah.
Something that has helped me greatly is just knowing the 7 steps to the apology, because no matter when I fuck up, it's like, all right, I need to make sure that I'm not doing further harm. I need to do, like, the steps work for any fuck up, really.
Right. Yes,
like,
they do.
And it's sometimes they're a little bit more, it makes a little bit more targeted sense. It's like, okay, boom, boom, boom. And sometimes it's the principles of the 7 steps where it's like, okay, I've fucked up. I'm not going to do anything that's going to further this. Okay, let me make amends. And, you know, you go through those steps. So knowing that right off the back is going to help you human and adult a little bit easier.
And even down to like, we've literally sent customer services representatives to that thing. Like, you want to know how to address a fuck up with a customer? Here are the steps to do it. It's the same if you're doing it in business as it is when you're doing it in personal relationships. Like, this is a legit thing.
We just sent this to a global company and was like, normally we charge for this, but you really need this. You really need this.
Like, more importantly, I need you to know this, because this is what you need to do to address this situation with me. Like, it was a funny email. I'm sure there'll be a podcast episode on that. So the thing about it is that if you are at that point where it's like, okay, you've dealt with your internal stuff, hold on, I screwed up. In that I screwed up, you can then focus on the other part. If you have screwed up, as Serena said, you have those 7 steps there. Okay. Am I making any further harm at this moment? Probably not right in this moment in time. However, I will say that a lot of the time, how people respond to a screw up causes further harm. It's not the thing they were doing originally that causes the further. It's not like, oh, well, I don't know why I really
You're gonna
apologize.
punch me in the face
no, I was
again?
going to
No.
hit you over the head with something. Like if I'm like hitting her over the head with something, like acting to avert further harm is I stop hitting her over the head. I really apologize. I'm not. No, I don't know. Like
She's usually not a physical person.
no,
like
I'm not. I'm really not at all. I'm like, in fairness, in my head, I had a pool noodle in my head. It wasn't anything like hard. I was like, I'm like
Not
not
a
that makes it
2x4.
okay. Yeah, no.
I'm just trying to annoy you, not harm you.
Yes, I'm not. Yes, let's not do that. But if I'm in that situation, what I'm doing is like, okay, to stop harming somebody is let's use a slightly different example. So if I'm meeting my anger, my emotional experience and expression need for processing my anger by shouting at Serena, avoiding further harm is I stop shouting at her. Now, the interesting thing is that how people deal with this, and we need to do a podcast episode on this. I'm realizing this as I'm saying it. We haven't been explicit about this in the apology series, which is that acting to avert further harm is not just stopping the thing that was causing harm in the first place. It's don't make any further harm. Like so often, how people respond to a screw up makes it worse.
Get Joe a shovel and a bucket.
Oh God, a bucket? I mean, he's going to need a freaking, like, what do they call those?
Like a backhoe.
A what?
A backhoe?
What's one of those?
That's like one of the big macheneries that digs the holes.
Oh no,
for
I
it.
was thinking about like a skip, like as opposed to a bucket.
We always say because my dear Joe,
We love him. We do really love him.
Sometimes he just keeps talking. And it just keeps like, it's like people will be in these conversations and I'm so used to it at this point. And it's not necessarily in like the heat of like a big thing, but sometimes those kind of little nuancy niggly things where it's like, just stop talking. And people are like, is he still going? Is he still
like stop.
Oh God, did he just respond? Like,
yeah, no.
Don't.
You can...
And this isn't in these situations that I'm talking about now are not like
big
arguments or
yeah.
anything like that. It's just like, but it's the same thing where it's like, oh, just stop.
Well, and again, it's coming because he actually in those situations, normally it's because he genuinely wants to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But how he's approaching that understanding is kind of making the situation worse. And you're like
and if my needs weren't well taken care of, it would be like douche, just impact after impact. And I'm kind of like, okay. And not that I really should have to do that, but it's part of the dynamic, and he doesn't carry his shovel and bucket with him everywhere now. Like,
it's true. It's very true.
But
very
like,
true.
and it's those things. It's like, okay, this was a little bit like, all right, what the fuck? And now it's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, just stop. And there are times I'm just like,
right.
shh.
Well, and it's like if you imagine like a customer service situation where if you people have had these customer service situations where they're like, hey, so there's this thing and this went wrong or what have you, and the person's like, what the fuck do you expect me to do about it? Like that, how that response is. And actually we talked about this in, like, it's obviously not quite as extreme an example, where we talked about, I can't remember what episode it was, where with Serena's scorpion in the hotel room when on her honeymoon. Like how that complaint was responded to caused further harm because it appeared to devalue, to invalidate, and so it's like the act of further harm is like, yeah, stop doing the thing you were doing in the first place, but don't keep fucking up.
Yeah, like, don't do anything new.
Don't do anything new to make it worse. Don't double down. Like this happens so frequently where people like they're called out for doing something, and because they're in the defensive mode because their needs have been triggered, their unmet needs that were already unmet anyway got triggered. They end up doubling down, and you're like, oh no, like you screwed up to begin with, but now it's so much worse. Like just stop. Like. Just stop. Like all it takes a lot of the time is you to go, oh my God, my bad. Absolutely. I can totally see this is what I did. And I'm so sorry. I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to do this to make amends. And I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen in the future by doing this and this. Like it's super easy.
Or just stopping and being like, wow, yes, I see what I did. I need a moment to just kind of think it through.
Figure out.
A lot of times, like when we get into that mode, like that, like Claire said, the defensive wall comes up and we're like ready to go.
But that defensive wall comes up because it's trying to protect the unmet needs. The unmet needs are triggered, and that defensive response is I'm trying to I'm trying to prevent myself from being wounded any further. A lot of that wounding's your own shit. Got nothing to do with the other person. But that defensive reaction is an indicator your needs are unmet. So, yeah. So going back to what we talked about in the previous episode, that's where you're like, the second you notice that defensive piece coming in, hold on a second, what needs are triggered of mine right now? How do I meet those needs? And then take the time, because you might need some time to figure out, what exactly did I do wrong here? How am I going to address it? How am I going to make amends? How am I going to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future? You don't like, I think that sometimes I forget that it takes people longer to do that, because I've been doing this for so long now. For me, it's like ding, 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 ding. Like, and most of the time it's immediately obvious. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and do this. Like, and that's on me, because it's part of the challenge when you've done the needs work for as long as I have. Sometimes you forget things that other people don't know because it's such a part of your day-to-day life. And Serena's absolutely right. Like, there are times when it's like, okay, I know I've screwed up. I'm really sorry I've screwed up. I need to take a minute because I want to figure out how to make this right.
And sometimes, like in a customer service thing, something I used to do, being in customer service almost my entire life, is I'd be like, all right, I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to go into the other room and, I'm going to figure this out, or I'm going to, like, and actually removing yourself from this situation and being like, all right, just give me a minute to figure this out. Like, first apologize, make sure you're not doing anything. But it's okay to pause. It's okay to walk away, but make sure you're communicating what's going on. Because the worst thing is when somebody's like, you get in, you've been impacted, and then the person just kind of looks at you off and like turns around without saying anything. It's like,
and the important thing in that, both in a customer service situation and also in a interpersonal one as well, is let them know when you're coming back. Say, I'll be back within 5 minutes. And if you're not resolved in 5 minutes, you can come back in 5 minutes and go, I'm working through it. I think I'm nearly at a solution. I'm going to need another 5 minutes in order to do that. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Like, let somebody know how long, because if somebody's like impacted by what's been going on and they've got no clue how long it's going to take to create a resolution, that can amplify the situation. So let someone know and say that I'll check in with you in again, or I'll email you within 24 hours with a response, or I will get back to you
by this date,
this date, or whatever. Like, let someone know, because it means that they know. It manages expectations, and managing expectations is a great way of ensuring you're not going to that whole act to avert further harm. The unknown is what triggers often the security need, and that can cause further harm. If like someone's like, I don't know whether I'm going to hear back in 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 months, or maybe 2 years, who knows? I mean, some customer service is really bad. I've had some doozies in it. Like, we've both had some doozies in our time. Like, it would be so easy to make this just a customer service podcast. Like, we have so many stories to tell.
I think we'd scare a lot of companies, because we have no problem being like, this is how you like, how to receive good customer service. We did a podcast on, it's like, we teach this. Here you go. Like, you want to do this right for me and for your further customers. Here you go.
We're happy to help people give better customer service. Like, we have no issue with that. But communicating, like, normally over communication rather than under communication. Like, it's unlikely you're going to get into an over communication thing where it's like, okay, this is not, and you can communicate that and be like, okay, this is a little bit much. I don't need quite this much information, but most people under communicate. So over communicating is definitely with the tendency you want to lean on. So if you did the, oh shit, I screwed up, was where I was going with that. As you go, okay, and you work your way through the apology blueprint, episode number 16. Now, the third option in this situation is, if there's nothing being triggered within you, and there is, because you've dealt with your internal triggers, but it seems like there's still something a little bit off about the situation, and you've looked at it and you've gone, actually, I don't think I've done anything to, like, I don't think I've done anything wrong in this situation. And also, you can ask in that situation, be like, it feels like maybe there's something you're not happy about right now, and I can't see what that is. Are you willing to share it with me? Like, is there something you want to let me know about? Because then again, if someone lets you know, you can be like, oh shit, yes, totally get it. I screwed up, blah, blah, blah. Third option. The third option is that in that situation, if the other person seems to be a little off or have some energy about them that doesn't seem great, you can then start to have compassion for them and say, well, maybe this is happening because of her unmet needs. And then you can be like, is everything okay? Is there anything I can do to support you right now? Is there anything you need at the moment? Like, can I help with, maybe it's her, you've decided ahead of time that she makes dinner every night. Like, would it help if I made dinner tonight? Like we talked about, in the mental labor episode about, like, it's okay if you decide, if you split your tasks of the relationship, you'd be like, okay, is this something normally you do, but would it help if I did this tonight? Like, you can then start to come with compassion, because sometimes the reason that people have that slightly off tone in what they're saying is because of their own unmet needs. But we get so defensive about the fact that we feel criticized or we feel judged, we feel blah, 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 because of our own unmet needs that are getting triggered by that it prevents us from reaching out and checking in and being like, is everything okay? Like, you seem... like, something seems a little bit off right now. I can't tell exactly what it is, or you seem a little upset or a little frustrated, or I feel like there's some emotion there, but I can't quite name what it is. Is everything okay right now? Like, did something happen at work? Is there stuff going on? Do you want to talk to me about it? Like, coming at it from that compassionate standpoint, because I'm going to tell you, there have been times where I might have been short with somebody because I've got stuff going on, and then someone comes up to me that, and I'm like, actually, yes, there's all this stuff going on. And it's got nothing to do with the other person. They've just got their own stuff going on. And you can then offer support in that situation. And again, because if you've taken care of your needs and your needs are well met, you have the resources to support and help the other person in that situation. And that is so appreciated. It makes such a difference, especially when someone kind of realizes, oh shit, I was just a bit short with them. But they've come to me with kindness and offering support.
Yeah.
Huge.
I mean, I can give you an example. Like, dishes always comes to mind when it comes to this kind of stuff for whatever reason. And I think it's because it's something that Joe and I have, like, throughout our relationship. We both fucking hate doing dishes. Like, we hate it. Both of us, like, if we weren't so conscious about, like, our impact in our footprint in the world, like, disposable, I would just throw it all fucking out. But there will be days where I've had a lot going on at work and I've had a really busy day and I'm jam-packed and it's like go, 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 and I can't wait to get home, and I get home and he's been working or doing whatever or doing nothing, whatever it may be, and I see the dishes and I walk in and it's like, I'm not mad at him. I'm not, like, there's nothing there. I'm triggered by the dish. Nothing else except, there's something else that needs to be done. Like, It's not that it's his responsibility or my responsibility or Larry's responsibility. It doesn't matter whose responsibility it is.
Now, that would be a cool trick. Getting Larry to do I mean, your fist bumps and your high fives are all very well, but get him to do the dishes. That would be the real trick.
The potties first.
Fair.
Yeah, we're going to train him how to use the toilet. We'll let you know how that one goes. But, like, sometimes it's just the fact, it's like, there's another thing that needs to be done in my world. And that's the trigger. And then him coming to me be like, okay, you seem really put off. Are you mad at me that I didn't do the dishes? No. All right. Well, if you're not mad at me that I didn't do the dishes, but you're obviously triggered by the dishes, and then asking, is everything okay? It's just, I've just had a really long day at work, and this was just one more thing, and it's, I'm fine. I just needed to kind of process it. It can't, like, I processed it.
Need to clear it.
Yeah. I was talking to the dish, but I can see where that came across, that I was talking to you about it. Like, and that little bit of a change and that little questioning makes it so it's not like this whole big triggering event that never had anything to do with either of us. It's just where I happen to be at in the day.
Right. And I think that sometimes it can be like, it's not even that there's something triggered in that moment. It's not even there's something in the environment. It's just someone's overwhelmed and somebody asks them a perfectly neutral question or says something to them, and there's this like short response.
Do you want a coffee? Well, yeah, I want a fucking coffee.
What the fuck do you think? Like,
do you know me at all? I know I've said something like that to Joe at one point, like just kind of like trying to be funny, sarcastic, but either I wasn't in a really good place or he wasn't in a really good place. In something like, yeah, obviously I want a coffee.
Yeah.
Like, but like trying to be funny. And that, like, If somebody is in a not great place, even that can kind of create like that kind of conflict and that little bite in
and what's funny to people in different situations, like depending on where they're at, anything that adds any other tension to the space, it's potentially going to trigger something. It can be like you could just walk into the room. I mean, I remember there was I remember an incident that I actually talk about in the program where there was this one day, like I'm sure this has happened more than once, but there was this one day in particular that I remember, like I was irritated. I was irritated with everyone and everything, and I was irritated with me for being irritated. Like everything was irritating me.
You know, it's a good day when you irritate yourself. You're like, I'm annoying myself.
And the person I was with wasn't doing anything wrong. And this wasn't where, I mean, in that situation, what would have been great in that situation would have been for the person I was with to be like, hey, you okay? Like, is everything okay? Like, do you need anything? Right? Do you need to take a break right now, or do you need some rest? And I had so much to do. I had work to do. Like I had a lot to do. Luckily, I was able to do this for myself in that situation because I didn't have that kind of support back then. Where I was able to go, actually, what's going on right now? I'm exhausted. That's what I need to go and sleep. And even though I had a huge amount of work to do, I went and I rested. And when I was rested, no longer was I irritated anymore. And it wasn't like anyone had done anything was going on. I was just irritated. And I was irritated because my needs were unmet. It wasn't even because someone had done something wrong. I was just tired. And when I was tired, I ended up being irritated with everyone and everything, including myself. So it's like, it's not even that there's a trigger or an incident. Like if your needs are unmet, sometimes that you'll be like short, or you'll be frustrated, or like some people cry for no reason, like quote unquote no reason, but the reason is their needs are unmet. Like they're exhausted, or they've got other things that are going on. So it's in those moments where if there's something that feels slightly off, you can kind of check in and be like, hey, like, can I, like, are you okay? Is there anything going on? Do you want to talk to me about anything? Is there like, could I help you in any, like, can I support you in any way? Is there anything I can do? And having somebody in that space makes all the difference.
And it's nice to know that somebody knows you well enough to be like,
right.
Oh, they're off for whatever the reason might be. And Claire and I do this consistently. If one of us is off, we'll be like, is everything okay? And we'll kind of go through that process. And sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm in it, or like, but we may not engage after that point if it doesn't serve us to do so. But just having somebody check in and be like, all right, like that,
that's supportive.
That's supportive.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a big, long, like heartfelt conversation. And I think a lot of times people kind of get into that, and it's like, I don't have the capacity to really, really, really be there, but like just check in, and then you can check in and then determine your capacity from there. And that's something that I learned. It's like, I don't have the capacity. I'm not going to even check in. Right. But if I was to check in, if something was going on with Claire and she's like, all of this, blah, 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 and it's like, I could stop her and be like, I want to be here for you right now. This, like, I can't do it talking, or like, can I give you a hug? And you can offer and figure out a way that's supportive for both of you in this situation.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, I'm not sure if that happened to you before kind of the lifestyle that we lead now, but it's like, I wouldn't step into those places because I'm like, oh, what am I going to get myself into?
Right.
And then I'd leave my friend there unsupported, just kind of floating around, where just acknowledging it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's look at examples of how this might show up within the context of our working relationship. So one of the things that I think that
You're gonna punch me in the face again?
I'm not gonna punch you in the face again, I promise. It's only ever metaphorical. I don't know what I'm trying to remember. There's something like there was a TV show or something. Oh, it was we were watching Sherlock over. I have this thing that most years between Christmas and New Year, I watch at least a few episodes of Sherlock. It's one of my favourite shows. And there's this point in it where they're trying to get into someone's house, and Sherlock turns around to Watson and says, "Punch me in the face." And he was like, "What?" He's like, "Did you not hear me?" I said, "He punched me in the face." He's like, "I always hear punch me in the face when you're speaking, but it's normally subtext." That's all I could hear in my head. Like I was like, that's what I could see in my head as we're having this conversation. Like, no, only ever metaphorical. Only ever to illustrate a point. So yeah, so looking at some of the examples of how this could show up with us. So, for example, the first element of this is so. For example, as Serena shared in a previous podcast episode, there have been times where like social media is not her thing, where she hasn't been as active in our social media community as she believes would have been equitable for our working relationship. True?
True.
So if I'd said to her, like, what have you done in the social media group today? Like, that probably is going to land on her already feeling like she's not doing enough. So that's her stuff about what she's feeling about, like, not, and it may, and there was probably a point within our working relationship, it's definitely not present now, but I think there was definitely a point early on where you didn't feel like you were doing enough for the business because you probably didn't know what to do, and also you were working another job and I was doing a lot by myself. So I think if I'd said that, it would have triggered some stuff within you.
Oh, definitely. Like, even now when you say it, because I still don't love social media. So it's always kind of a challenge for me.
That's news.
Right. So it's still challenging. And even when you said it there, like then we're just giving an example. I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, but where before it would have been like a hard, like, ow. Yeah. Now it's like, yeah, like, you're right. And because we've talked about this, it's like, okay, I may not be a rock star here, but let me do this to try and kind of figure out the equity in it. But it's still kind of is like okay, because I know that it's my stuff.
And I think because it's not something that we've ever said you're not meant to be doing. Mm-hmm. That's the reason. It's not like we've said, okay, Claire's doing this, Serena's doing that. And I think it's because, therefore, it's something you felt like you haven't really been doing, quote unquote, enough of, because it still technically sits on your plate. I don't expect her to do as much because I know her, not because we've had an explicit conversation about it. However, what I was saying, like going on to step number 2, there have been times where, and this is the interesting thing about this, is that once you get into this kind of dynamic with the people around you, is that there have been times where I've kind of called Serena out on the social media stuff, and I'm like, hello, it feels like it's just me.
Rightfully so. I haven't seen a post in a month or so. Yeah, that Facebook still exists?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Check on that one and get back to me.
So in that situation, Serena will be like, oh, I fucked up. Yes, here's what I'm going to do, blah, 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 blah. And there are times when I don't need to say anything, and Serena will come to me and be like, hey, I know I fucked up. Like, I haven't been doing anything in the social media group. Just want you to know I'm aware of it. I'm not like, I'm like, I've been sick. I'm overwhelmed. I've had stuff going on. I haven't had the capacity to do it. Let's talk about it and figure out how we can like make this more equitable again. So like the cool thing is that you can actually use your knowledge of this to be proactive, to not wait for it to cause a conflict, not wait for the person being impacted to come to you.
To reach the point of needing to come to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there have been times, and looking at the third option, there were times during the visa process where I got incredibly short. Not going to lie. It was very stressful, not an excuse. My needs were being consistently impacted because of the time frame we had and the amount we had to do. And just this, and like you look at needs in that, foundation function, it's literally where I live and it's literally where my business, like we're wanting to run the business. So like foundation function, it's like a big hit as far as that's concerned. Security, like me knowing where I'm going to live and where I'm going to be and all that sort of stuff. Love and connection, my business partner's here. I've got lots of like friends here. Like this is a community I feel very much a part of. You go into like emotional experience expression, like value need, like are they valuing me appropriately? Yes, now they have, thank goodness. But like, were they going to? At one point, didn't know. Personal power. I didn't feel like I had any power in that situation other than what I was doing in terms of the what I was physically able to put into that thing. So my needs were being like hit with this visa stuff, which meant that over the slightest things at times, I got remarkably short. And there was a point at which, bless her, I mean, Serena handled it amazingly. But like at one point she came to me, she was like, I'm trying really hard not to impact you, but it seems like in trying not to impact you, I'm impacting you and I don't know what to do anymore. Like it was like, and it was like, and she came to me like with compassion, like I know how much stress you're under right now. What can I do to help? Like, how can I? And at that point I'm like, I don't want you to feel like that. Like, so like both of us were in like a puddle of tears. Like, I don't want you to feel like this has nothing to do with you. This is all about the visa stuff. Like, but I mean, it was.
Yeah, we had a couple of those, especially during the visa process definitely
was exceptional in lots of ways.
Yeah, that was life lessons 101. And I remember there was one time, another situation in the midst of it, I was like, are you mad at me? Like, and she was like, no, this is what happened. And we just talked about it right there in that moment. But it was me, like, if I hadn't said, are you mad at me? She had no clue.
No.
Well, she had very little awareness of the tone and the quickness or any of it. And I was like, if I hadn't said that, I would have created a story in my mind. But in that moment, I was like, okay, well, if she's mad at me, I want to know that so that we can clear this and deal with it. If she's not mad at me, she needs my support because it comes off that she's fucking pissed right now over something.
Oh, I was pissed with the world at various points in this process. I'm not going to lie.
But it wasn't directly at me. And
and actually further than that, like I was so grateful to Serena. Like Serena was supporting me like no other person on the planet, not because other people on the planet didn't want to support me, they didn't know how to, like, but she was by my side in the trenches with me every single day. So not only was I not mad with her, I was amazingly grateful to her, but because of everything, all of my unmet needs at that point in time, how I was communicating made it seem like I was mad at her. So of course I wanted to address that too, because that's the last thing I'd want. Like, because I wouldn't want her to think that not only am I not grateful, but I'm mad at you. Like right now, I'm like, oh my God, no, I don't know. I honestly don't believe I would have done it without her. And I've said this to her on numerous occasions. Like, I don't think I would have my visa approved if it weren't for the woman sat next to me right now. Like, we did this together. This was a team effort start to finish. So the thought that she thought I was mad at her when she was the only thing like keeping me afloat through that process, that was something that horrified me. And I was so glad that she brought it up.
And I knew she wasn't. I knew she wasn't mad at me. Like, I could have taken a step back and been like, no, I know. And I did that a lot during that process. Kind of like the first example that Claire said. It's like trying not to impact you. And by not impacting you, I'm impacting you. So I'm kind of like, should I just sit here and wait for instruction?
Yeah.
Like,
do I step out? But I don't want to step out because I want you to feel supported. And like,
right.
Yeah.
And
it was intense.
You need to address the things when they come up. And that's a lot of the conflict that comes into conversations. It starts compounding because during the visa situation, if we ignored one part of it,
oh wow,
and then another, it was like, oh, I know where she's at. Oh, I know where she's at. Oh, I know where she's at. Like if we were being completely understanding without going through that, kind of acknowledgement and the emotional experience and expression of our own.
Well, and the thing about it is in that situation, you can be understanding of where somebody else is at, but you still have to process how you feel about it. And it's like, if that's not enough to process, like if you need to process it with, like sometimes, like there have been times on both of our sides where one or other of us have been going through and the other one's like, I know where she's at. I know that's not what this is going on. I'll go away and process how I feel about it. And there's actually nothing to resolve because I know this is just part of what's going on right now. And there have been times in those same situations where it's like, I need to say something because I just need to check where we're at and just make sure it's been cleared and that we're both on the same page with this, which 99.9% of the time it's like I mention it, you mention it. It's like, oh God, yeah, absolutely sorry, we're done, but move on kind of thing.
And I want to say we both usually say 90% of the time, even if we know where the other person is and we're like, okay, I can see why this is happening. This makes sense, but I do need to address it. We still stop, pause, process it process it.
Process it? Did you just process something?
No, it must have been like
she did.
breakup.
That's the whole like, I'm going through a tunnel. I can't hear Q anymore.
You didn't hear any British in me.
My British influence.
But we take a moment and we process it really quickly for ourselves. It's like, okay, how am I feeling? I'm feeling kind of like put off by this. I'm feeling upset. I'm angry, whatever. So that we're not coming at it with the energy of like, here's all my shit on top of your shit. It's like, okay.
Right. And it's like, oh, and like, this is triggering something of me not feeling good enough right now. I know I'm good enough and I know I'm doing, like, we'll do all of that internal stuff before we have the conversation. And then the conversation becomes super easy to have and quick and easy to have because there's no charge.
Yeah. And it's not me she's not dealing with my needs on top of my needs on top of how they were impacted or vice versa.
Right. Absolutely. So I do think that that's a really important thing to kind of add to this is that being able to offer support and compassion to the other person and also still be able to name, that kind of sucked a little bit. I'm okay. And I know where you're at. I wanted to just name it. So it's not in my head or not in my energetic space anymore. I'm not bringing this into the approach. And most of the time, and that's even when I was in the hole, which I was a little bit on a couple of occasions with the visa process. Like even in that process, I'm like, thank you for saying something. Like, even though I was like, oh, my head's going to explode and I can't deal with anything else right now. But because I didn't feel like Serena was expecting anything of me other than the really simple thing of, oh my goodness, I'm acknowledging, I'm apologizing. That's the last thing I would have wanted. I don't want you to know how grateful I am for you. Like in those moments, and that's super easy to do because even in the midst of being in it, if someone's not coming at it with the energy of like her unmet needs, that would be a different ball game. So being able to do that for yourself makes a huge difference. Anything else you want to add?
We have another one in this series.
We do have another one to come, but I thought this is just a really, this is a good example of like how the needs lens, when you put a needs lens on these sorts of situations, you could look at it and go, oh, what's going on for my needs? What's going on about this? What's going on for their needs? And that it can change. It can give you the tools to understand how to address these situations and how to resolve them in a different way. So I think that's it for today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching us. Remember to stay safe. We're sending you lots of love. And between now and next time, to remember to continue to meet your own needs. That's stuff. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us.
And remember, if you feel triggered during a conversation, you first want to check if it's your own stuff. Then you might want to check to see if there's something you want to apologize for. And then you might want to check to see if the other person needs a little compassion because their needs are unmet.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.